Well, just come back off another socially distanced adventure, so now seems like a good time to make a vlog. So, first things to say, the B-roll you're seeing right now was actually captured while I was out. So I went out and shot some odds and ends. I have no idea what I'm going to end up using in the final video, but, well, I guess you can see it now. To talk about the experience of actually going out, it's very quiet, as one would hope. The roads are completely empty, essentially. You could literally walk right down the middle of them in some parts, well, quieter roads anyway. And it's pretty wild, like, actually having people, move away from you as you kind of walk past. It's pretty damn crazy. But, all of it is kind of as you would hope. And that's pretty much all I have to say about it, other than I hope all of you fantastic listeners out there are staying home and staying safe and are otherwise well. Now in this vlog I'd just like to quickly talk about some adventures I've had in Linux as of late. Now one of the unfortunate things about this world, and there goes my phone, yeah, I'll not cut that out, but one of the unfortunate things about this world is sometimes you do kind of need to run proprietary software for one reason or another. It's unfortunate, but it's just kind of how it is sometimes. And I don't necessarily condone running proprietary software, but if you do have to use it then, it's completely fine, you probably should use it. And I've had one such incident quite recently with I believe the Microsoft Office suite and the Adobe suite. I need both of those things for, studies and what have you. And it was an absolute nightmare trying to get it all to work. My first idea was to install it in a Windows virtual machine. The Office 365 suite does actually work like that, of course. But the Adobe suite obviously won't, because it needs, full video acceleration and whatnot that a virtual machine can't provide. So I was thinking to myself, well, how am I going to kind of get this all working? And my first thought was, I'm not going to be able to install Windows. The bootloader is just going to completely mess up my, Linux install. I don't want Windows anyway. It's junk. But so my next thought was to try and install Mac OS, which I was limited to High Sierra, but that's fine. I just needed to use the Adobe suite. But the caveat to that is I only have a 128 gig SSD, so I think I made something like a 40 or 50 gigabyte partition for macOS, and of course that left, the remainder of the disk to Linux. I thought that would be totally fine, because Linux would have been completely fine on a 60 gigabyte partition, because I do have a connected 1 terabyte drive for data. However, that's not the case at all, because macOS takes up a lot of storage space. I think it took up something like 30 gigs just from the installation alone, which is insane. Once I got the Adobe suite on there and Microsoft Office on there, it just wouldn't have been worth it at all, and I obviously couldn't have used the Adobe suite anyway because it spits out quite large files. Supposedly there's a way you can mount ext4 drives on macOS, but I couldn't get it to work, so there would be no way of saving files to the ext4 terabyte drive I have. So in the end I just kind of gave up. I'm going to have to find some other solution to run the Adobe suite, maybe see if I can get by with Kdenlive or whatever. One can hope, and I probably should be able to, because Kdenlive is actually very good, and pretty much does everything that Adobe Premiere does anyway, which is why to anyone who wants to edit videos and stuff, I would recommend Kdenlive over Adobe Premiere in a heartbeat, unless you really are a absolute, creative professional and all that sort of stuff. Of course, so the Microsoft Office suite works fine on a virtual machine, so I've got that for the time being, and maybe I'll look out for a open source alternative to the program I need to use, which is Publisher. But I think for the time being I do actually need Publisher specifically, unfortunately, which is quite annoying, but I just kind of wanted to give that little story, say, as much as kind of the more hardcore open source people will tell you should never ever run proprietary software, sometimes you are unfortunately going to need to, and that's completely fine. Just make sure you can run, free and open source programs wherever possible. And for our next little sort of vlog subject, I just want to quickly talk about where we're at with LibreQuest. For those of you that don't know, that's the podcast that I co-host every so often. and I have just finished making a new episode of that. It's about the history and, you know, present and maybe even a little bit of the future of a media player called Audacious. Now, of course, not to pat my own back or anything, but I think it's a pretty good video, and I don't know when it's going to be uploaded, but just stay tuned to LibreQuest, and eventually the video will be uploaded, and you can go ahead and give that a look. I'll have a little link in the description for LibreQuest, where you can find all the episodes that I host and all of the episodes of LibreQuest generally. And I think that's pretty much all I've got to say for this sort of little vlog thing. Trying a little bit of a different format than last time's vlog. Hopefully it worked out, and hopefully you enjoyed this video. And I thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one for a proper video. And I think the next video is going to either be a review of Ferran OS or a review of Kdenlive, so stay tuned for that.